Welcome to JenTalks. Tonight you may notice that my usual time for producing my videos is around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But unfortunately, I'm only getting to my recording now, so apologies for anybody who's been waiting to hear part 2 of the talk on empathy. It's literally 20 to 10 and I'm getting online now to make this recording. So without further ado, I'll get stuck in and finish what I started last week when I began talking about empathy. I try and make the videos nice and short so that it doesn't take too long to load and that people don't lose interest halfway, because I know our attention span is so short these days. So I cut bigger topics into little 1 and 2 part series just to give people a better understanding of them. And empathy literally could be done in 10 parts. There's so much to it. One of the biggest questions that I get when it comes to empathy is, has everybody got a natural ability to feel empathy or to express empathy? And the answer to that question is very certainly no. And what we mean by that is there are people who don't have the capacity to feel empathy. And it doesn't mean that we need to necessarily judge them, because empathy is not just one single emotion. It's a collection of emotions. Empathy is more like a skill, really, than an emotion. Yes, it's something that we feel, but in order for us to express empathy, there's certain elements that must exist within the person. Now, they can be taught. We can teach people empathy, but it doesn't mean that everybody can be taught, or even everybody has the motivation to feel empathy for others. And most of the time we use words like narcissists and sociopaths for people who don't have the capacity for empathy. But there's also other things that are at play there. So it's not just as straightforward as that. So when we get to empathy, I'm going to just remind people about the power of empathy. And empathy is one of the defining factors in organizations, in relationships, in our mental and emotional health, that when we have the capacity to feel it and express it, and there is a culture where it's safe to embrace empathy, we have great success in these areas, whether it's the workplace or relationships. However, it's not as commonly found. So yes, I would talk a lot in organizations about compassionate communication, conflict management, communication styles, and empathy is always right up there, top of the list, as one of the most important things for us to adopt and adapt within our communication style. But yet it's probably one of the most rare tools in the toolkit. And it's definitely something that a lot of people are lacking in. And it's not that they don't know how to feel empathy or they don't want to feel empathy. It's that we often get mixed up as to what empathy is and what empathy isn't. And I touched on that last week. And I talked about different types of empathy and the idea of having like empathy fatigue or compassion fatigue or having burnout from empathy. And even the idea that some people have associated empathy as a negative construct. I would debate that myself. And where that kind of theory comes from is the idea that we overfeel other people's emotions. So that's really what I want to get into today, because I want to really highlight the power of empathy. So when we express empathy for another human being, what we're doing is we're taking a step into their world and we're saying to them, I see you and I'm with you on your path. I don't necessarily have to feel the pain that you're feeling. I don't even have to know what that pain feels like, but I do know what some pain feels like. And while you're struggling, I'm going to walk alongside you, shoulder to shoulder, and I am going to be with you every step of the way, and I'm going to support you. I'm not going to try and fix you. I'm not going to try and advise you. I'm not going to tell you what you should have done. I'm not going to tell you that I told you so. I'm going to support you in whatever you need from me. And one of the things about compassion, which is made up of empathy, is that it involves some action. So it's not just enough to walk with somebody on their path. If you want to express compassion for them, then it's about like, how can I serve you? As opposed to, this is what you need to do. Let me do this for you. Why don't you do that? And we all jump into that. Most of us struggle with the pain that other people are going through. So it's not even that, it's not always about them. It's often about us. When we see other people in pain, it makes us feel uncomfortable and it triggers us. And what we want to do is we want to fix it, or we want to judge it, or we want to ridicule it, or we want to do something that distracts from the actual pain. So to sit in the dark with somebody in their darkest moments is the biggest gift that you give them. And that's the biggest, I suppose, step. The first step in empathy is to actually take the step to sit in the dark with them and to sit in their uncomfortableness, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Then to listen on all levels, with your ears, with your eyes, with your heart, with your energy, to really listen to what's being said and to let the person know that you hear them. Also, that you see them in their pain, you see them in their wholeness as well. You know, just because somebody has pain doesn't mean that they're damaged, because we would take the assumption, particularly in coaching, that everybody is naturally resourceful and whole, and that this is a temporary situation that they're in, and that, you know, we'll be there with them till they make their way back. And then we'll get into the idea of the differences in empathy that I mentioned last week. We talked about cognitive empathy, where we can think about the pain that people are in, and, you know, from an analytical, from a rational part of our brain, we can understand it. So we can show somebody understanding, even if you've never experienced, you know, gambling all your money away, or having an affair, or something terrible that they're going through happening to you. You can imagine in your mind what it must be like to feel as desperate as them. And that's what cognitive empathy is. The other empathy that tends to cause the burnout is affective. In other words, we are affected by it. We feel it. And the big kind of myth that happens there is that people think that in order for you to feel empathy, we have the idea of walking in someone else's shoes for the day. And we say, yeah, absolutely, that sounds like empathy. But realistically, it's better to walk alongside somebody in your shoes and let them walk in their shoes, and you listen to their story of what it's like to walk in their shoes. That's much more powerful than you to walk in their shoes. But that's what that expression actually means. And while you're doing that walking in their shoes, is to get in under the understanding of the feeling that they're going through. So what we mean by that is, if somebody tells you that, you know, their dog was hit by a bus, and you've never had a dog and you don't know what it's like to lose an animal, it doesn't mean you have to try and feel like this enormous grief that they're feeling, you know, like almost like a, you know, a fakeness. But what you can do is you can understand what it's like to lose somebody, or understand what it's like to feel grief in some way. So you tap into your understanding of that feeling when you're trying to connect with that person. And that's where we get into the feeling of empathy. So that's where we get the myth of, you know, empathy is feeling another person's feelings for them. And that's why people get overwhelmed and they get burnt out. And so what I would say to you there, if you tend to lean into that affective empathy space, try and move more balanced, a bit of balance into the cognitive empathy from time to time. That you don't always have to feel the feelings just to connect and feel the empathy. You can also understand it on a rational level. You can say, God, I've never lost a dog before, but I understand that must be very difficult. I know that dog was in your family for the last 5 years and you were very close to them. And that in itself is causing a connection. So the idea that you have to feel that pain yourself over and over again just to connect with somebody isn't always the case. And the last note that I'm going to touch on, and I literally am only touching on each of these notes to try and give you a little better understanding. And maybe really the idea of these talks isn't for me to teach everything I know about each of the topics. And believe me, it's not that I know everything about them. I only know a little bit on each of the topics as well. It's the idea that it evokes a conversation. It triggers maybe an interest that you can go off and look up those words that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe did know them and you had a different understanding of them. And feel free to question what I'm saying, or to ridicule it, or to comment, or, you know, it's not that any of us are experts on this stuff. It's the idea that we're all just learning from each other. This platform is to encourage that. So the last point I want to finish on is the idea of empaths. I talked about this last week, that the idea that empaths are very sensitive to energy. So when we talk about that kind of energy, we're talking about our energy field, that we all have a field of energy around us, and that we all are sensitive to other people's energies, but some people are just more sensitive. Like some people are more sensitive to caffeine, some people are more sensitive to alcohol, some people are more sensitive to harsh words. That would be my sensitivity. Some of us are just more sensitive creatures. So empaths are people who are more sensitive to the energy field. And for that reason, they can pick up people's energies, maybe in a supermarket, maybe in a classroom, maybe just, online. And for that reason, they need to protect their energy a little bit more sacredly and safely. So I would encourage people who recognize this in themselves to ground themselves by walking in nature barefoot, particularly on grass if possible. And sand is also another wonderful way of grounding yourself. And what that does, it takes the charge of energy from your body out of your system. It's like an electrical charge that you pick up on. Also you can sage, you can use San Paulo, you can use different herbs and lotions to ground yourself from an energetic point of view. Water is another great resource for earthing yourself. Like for me, I would take a lot of baths. I love a soak in a bath, and I just energize all the extra energy that I might have. Sea swimmers, that's why sea swimming is another one of the reasons why sea swimming or any swimming is really powerful for you, because you're in the water and you're discharging back to the earth all the energy that you're carrying. And of course, the best solution of all is prevention is better than cure. So remember that if you are going to be around somebody that or in a situation where there's going to be negative energy, you can tube yourself. You can imagine putting yourself a protective cloak around you. You can call in your guardian angels. I mean, it's you, if you are an empath, would be well aware of the tools that are out there, because you'd be tuning into that. And not everybody, people have different beliefs, and I'm not trying to ram my beliefs down anyone's throat. So maybe you have angels, maybe you have God, maybe you have, science, who knows what it is that you believe in. But just to use a tool to protect your energy is really important. And then also to look at who is adding value to your life and who is zapping your energy. And naturally, as you do that exercise, and I've done a talk on that in the past, and it will be coming back up again, it's called the Circle of Trust, where you look at people and how much time you spend with people, and whether those people in your inner circle of trust in particular are adding value, or they're draining you, they're taking value from you. And if it's a case that it's the latter, well, then we look at how much time we spend with them and how much time we need to spend with them. Could we reduce that? As Bob Proctor would say, could you visit less often and for a shorter period? And all you can do is ask the question. So I've gone way over on my time tonight. I usually try and keep this to a maximum of 10 minutes, but as always, this topic is so vast that we could be talking about it for a week. I will be back online. I will be recording from Lanzarote next week. So I will look forward to having the lovely sun in the background, driving you all mad. And I will be talking again on another wonderful topic, yet to be confirmed, because I've had some feedback this week. People have asked me to talk on a couple of topics that I'm tossing with, but it will certainly be thought-provoking and hopefully enjoyable for you. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's talk, and I hope you stay in touch. As always, the talk is all over the platforms, all over social media. And if you missed this one tonight for any reason live, it's always posted on my YouTube channel. It can be found there as well. So thank you again for your enthusiasm and interaction. And I love having you connected with me. So keep up the connection, and thank you so much for joining me again on JenTalks. Take care and God bless.